Oh, thank you for speaking with us today. I'm just wondering, the way that you talk about changing attitudes of workers towards an acceptance, I guess, of conditions, and going back, thinking about um, working being unconscionable. Could you talk about media and maybe mass media and how that may have played a role in changing these perceptions? Thank you.
Well, what are the mass media? What's their nature, their institutional structure? That's the place to start with. The mass media are major corporations, most of them parts of mega corporations. Like they're a business, like other businesses. They have a product, they sell it to a market. The market is advertisers. It's basically the source of income. The product is you. The product is readers, viewers. The idea is that the businesses are selling audiences to other major businesses, very closely linked to government. There's an intimate relation between the, just as Henry Stimson pointed out, between the capitalist elite and the political elite. They interact, interchange, and so on. So when you look at that institutional structure, what do you expect to happen? What you expect to find is a media product that conforms substantially to the interests of the sellers, the buyers, the state institutions that are linked to them. And when you study the actual output of the media, it's pretty much what you find. There's by now substantial literature on this. You can look at it. My co-author and I, Edward Herman, the late Edward Herman, between us individually and jointly have published probably thousands of pages of illustrations of how this works. Many other people have as well. So there's a lot of material you can look at, evaluate, see if it's convincing, and so on. And I think one of the effects, one of the roles of the media, it's not even, I don't even think it's not even conscious, it's so deeply built in, is to support and enhance the conception that the only way to live, the only way, is to be the servant of a master or else be a master. That's it. There are no alternatives. Well, there are plenty of alternatives. They're tried and implemented and sometimes work, but you don't read about them. That shows up in this particular domain and every other domain as well. So I should say that there are serious problems in this media system at the moment, things we should be concerned about. The media system has, from my view, my point of view, it's serious flaws of the kind that I mentioned, but it also has positive function. It's the way of getting some kind of information about things that are going on domestically and in the world. May be skewed by propaganda, but at least there's the basic material there. Well, that's declining. The advertising model on which was the business model of the media is seriously declining with the shift of advertising to the internet. This has already had major effects. One effect is that quality local newspapers have almost disappeared. Boston Globe, where I lived most of my life, was a major newspaper, serious one, had the best reporting on the Central American atrocities in the 80s in the entire country. And I knew actually I was quite friendly with the editor and many of the leading journalists. It's gone. Now it's wire services and local news. Same with the San Francisco Chronicle, Detroit Free Press, Los Angeles Tribune, Los Angeles Times, many others. That decline in local quality media has greatly impoverished the general cultural level in the country. Another thing that's happened is that especially young people are not even looking at newspapers, even at television. Study came out recently of Gen Z, 1997 birth today. Practically none read the newspapers or watch television. In fact, even looking at Facebook is declining. People are getting their news from young people, from Instagram and TikTok and so on. It's a real impoverishment. We have to, and here, if we go back to the labor organizations, which have been pretty much smashed during the massive Cold War, class war of recent years. Labor movements were not just at places where people tried to raise wages, or they were a full life. 1930s, you join a union, that's your life. Adult education, cultural programs, classical music, Shakespeare plays, social events. It was an entire social, cultural, and political life all around the unions. Well, with the decline of the union movement and the attack on it as part of the savage class war of the last couple decades, all of that's disappeared. People are left for something else. Often leaves them prey to demagogues, to social media of the kind that disinform, mislead, mega churches, other forms of organized irrationality. Very dangerous effect. Well, one of the goals of the activists today, as in the past, should be to encourage the development of, and participate if possible, in the development of organizations based on, labor unions are the obvious ones, based on people's life's work and life's commitment, which will reconstruct and enliven and enrich the cultural life and structure that was in the past built around the labor movement and should be again. Otherwise, it's going to be a society of disinformation, fakery, lies, distortion, and so on, in which people are left alone to hang out there in isolation to try to find their way. Well, that's a form of social and political control, similar to totalitarianism, even without the black shirts.